Hi, I'm Dilum from Kalam Flutter community, Sri Lanka. And also I'm a GitHub campus expert. Today I'm going to talk about how navigation works in Flutter, what is Navigator widget, and what are the types of navigation we have in Flutter. So let's start flirting with Flutter.
So before we jump into the code, let me give you a brief idea about the theoretical parts of Flutter navigation or navigation in Flutter. So if you are discussing about navigation in Flutter, basically we have three parts that we should focus on navigation related to Flutter. For the moment, I have divided it to three parts or three topics to make it easier for you guys. So the first thing is how screens are stacked in Flutter. Basically, like when we have multiple screens, how Flutter is maintaining those screens. The second thing is how do we perform a navigation between multiple screens or among multiple screens or between two screens. Then the third thing, I think it's the most important thing because nowadays the modern applications tend to have a lot of screens or a lot of layouts where user interacts or user enters data, and we need to pass this data between all these screens. Sometimes there are a lot of complex navigation in modern applications. So in that topic I'm going to discuss about how data passing works in Flutter. So before we jump into all that, I should say this tutorial related resources, I have published it on my GitHub repository, on my GitHub profile. You can find my GitHub profile, Dilum 1995, and under that there's a Flutter navigation repository. For the moment it's a private repository, but I'll make it public once I record this video. So like the first topic is how screens are stacked in Flutter. So I think if you are discussing about how screens are stacked in Flutter, actually the Flutter uses a concept called stack to maintain all these screens which we are used to perform a navigation. So in Flutter they use this widget stack, or the route stack, to maintain navigation between two screens or navigation between multiple screens. So to get a very brief idea about that, how Flutter manages navigation with the stack concept, let me explain it. So Flutter provides Navigator widget or the Navigator class. It has couple of methods which you can use to perform a navigation in Flutter. So that particular class provides us push method, pop method, and so many push named method, those kind of methods which we can use during navigation in our application. So if we can take if you are taking the Navigator widget as the base thing of the navigation, then we have this stack. For the moment I don't have any screens, so the stack is empty. So assume I am going to develop my first screen and run the application. So now I have my first screen which is currently visible to the user, and I am pushing my first screen to the stack. So the first page one or the first screen first route will be there in the stack as the first initial screen. So assume my application has two screens. So I'm going to perform a push method because we need the push method which we'll be discussing on the latter part of this tutorial. This push method, what it does, it helps you to navigate to another screen. So that's the method which has provided by Flutter Navigator widget to navigate to another screen or to a new screen. So now the page 2 is our latest screen, and page 2 is the screen which is currently visible to the user. So now we can see the page 2 is in the stack. So now we have two screens. Initially we had page 1, now we have a new screen called page 2, and that page 2 is the page which is currently visible to the user, and it's also in the stack. So assume now the user press the back button, or else we press the back floating action button to come back to the previous page. That means the page 1, the blue color one. So in that case, the Flutter Navigator widget provides us a method called pop. That pop method, we can use it to navigate back to our previous screen. So assume now I am going to perform a pop method. So now I am performing a pop action. That means I am using the pop method. I am going to going to come back to the previous page. So the second screen is gone. Now you can realize that second screen has been disappeared from the stack as well, because when it comes to this stack, it follows a concept called LIFO, which says last in first out. So whatever the page or whatever the data we stored as the last thing in the stack, it will come out when we call back, as in the last thing which we stored in the stack will be the first thing that comes out. So even the Flutter Navigator routes, when we navigate routes in Flutter Navigator, it uses this LIFO concept. So as you saw in this demonstration, the now the page 1 is the page which is visible to the user. Earlier we had page 2 and we performed a back operation to the page 1. Now we are in the page 1, and the last page which we stored in the stack is disappeared, and it's cleared. So come back to the topic. Now we have a very clear understanding about how Flutter stores its routes or its screens or the layouts using Flutter Navigator widget. It stores those stuff in a stack. Okay, now we have a clear understanding about how screens are stacked in Flutter, or the routes are stacked in Flutter. So the second topic of my tutorial is this how navigation works in Flutter. That means how if you have an initial screen and if you want to have a second screen, and how do you gonna make that navigation, or how do you gonna develop that navigation. That would be a kind of a coding part where I gonna demonstrate it to you while developing an application. So I hope you guys will follow me, and you guys will also develop this application, or else don't forget to visit my GitHub profile, and under code samples I'll be storing that that particular part related code. So when you go to this repository, so under branch we have this different branches. I have made these different branches based on the topic that I am going to discuss during this tutorial, or else you can find it by the name. So for the moment, under master, I am going to store this simple navigation related code. So to discuss about how simple navigation happens in Flutter, so I am going to develop a application with you guys, a very basic applications which has 2 pages, and we are going to navigate from the first page to the second page using a button interaction. So let me develop the application, and meanwhile I'll explain what's happening. So I'm going to import the material dart, because I'm going to follow the material theme, and in my case, in the library folder, I only have main.dart. So since, as I told you guys, I'm going to have 2 pages. First one will be page 1. So I'm creating a separate Dart file for that, and the second, and I have page 1 and page 2. So in this page 1 main.dart, I'm going to have my main method, which is provided by Flutter and using run app. These are pretty basic stuff. I hope you guys have already covered these stuff during the boot camp, the previous sessions that you guys had. So in my case, I don't have a class called my app. So create a class called my app, and that class will be a stateless wizard. So it's a stateless wizard. Yeah, I'm not going to put the stateless wizard. So we are missing one override function, which usually I don't return. I use this thing to return material app. I'm going to return a material app, and the material app. So in that material app, I may have dot simple navigation demo. Give me a second. It would be a string. Simple navigation would be my and yeah, sorry, let me add theme. So in this theme, I'm going to have theme data, and it would be the primary swatch would be colors dot blue, because the first page would be a blue color one, and yeah, I'm missing this, and I should define my home. So in the home, I'm going to say my home is the page 1. So the page 1 would be my first initial screen. So if you go to page 1, in the page 1 also I have to import material dot. Then you guys can see that let me, so it doesn't let me develop this application and explain it to you guys, because it's somewhat hard to type. And so here I'm creating a new class called page 1, and it extends. It's also a stateless wizard, so I might have the curly brackets and screen. So the best thing in IntelliJ and these kind of IDEs, they suggest you, if you are missing any override function, or if you are missing anything within your application, it will suggest you what you are missing. So you can simply check this stuff. So I'm going to return a scaffold here. Return a scaffold. Okay. So in this scaffold, I'm going to say my background color, as I showed you guys. My background color would be colors dot blue, and there will be a floating action button, because the initial example I showed you guys, there was a floating action button. So the floating action button, so I'm creating a floating action button, and in that I have this onPressed method. For the moment it will be a empty method, and I'll be going ahead with the other stuff. So we have tooltip. So the tooltip should says next page, I guess. Yeah. So then we can have a child to have the icon. Then we can have a child, and it should be a icon theme, and have child and icon theme data, because I need to customize this icon to a white color one. Color, I'm going to put colors dot to a blue color one, so colors dot blue. Then here I have to pass, it should be a new icon theme. Then so icon theme is there. That's there. The argument type icon theme can't be assigned to parameter type wizard. Okay, it should be not child, it should be data. And thus this child, in the child I am going to include a new icon, and it should be icons dot arrow forward. So then we have this background color. We have to add background color. It was background color of the floating button, colors dot white, and then we have the body of our page. So I'll add a simple container. And child is I'll send to the child's of that container. It's easier, no need to worry about the alignments. The text, so the text would be page 1, and let me add some style to the text style. I hope you guys are following. If you guys missed anything, you guys can just visit to my GitHub profile, the code is there. So font weight.bold. So these are some default stuff that I'm using for my applications, because it gives me that minimal looking design. So I hope everything is okay now, and missing something, yeah, missing a colon here. Okay, so now this I have to import page 1 because I'm going to use this page 1. So let me run the application and see whether it works. If the page 1 works, we can move ahead with the navigation part, because for the moment we have a very we have an empty onPressed. We haven't assigned anything with our onPressed method. So let me check with our application runs. So application builds. So I have iOS emulator. It's iPhone XR 12.2 iOS version. So until that, let me take the same copy of this because I'm not gonna use different things in this page, and let me change it to yellow. Oh, oh. Let me change it to yellow, and that was amber, yes. Yeah, it works. So this for the second page, I'll put here previous page, because in this page I am going to perform a back operation where we can see how Flutter pop method works. So yeah, the colors.blue should be yellow, and this should be arrow back, and yeah, here we can put page 2. Okay, so here also we have this empty method on onPress, on the onPress function. So for the moment it doesn't do anything. So how we do this navigation, I told you guys we use navigator. So navigator is the widget that Flutter has provided us to perform navigation. If we look into the original class, it says creates a widget that maintains a stack-based history of child widgets. So basically that's what I explained during the initial part of my talk or the tutorial. It creates a widget that maintains a stack. So let me quickly jump into the dot of. So normally for the moment it has this push. So the push method, what it passes, passes a context and the route. So in my case I am going to pass a new material page route. So in material we have this material page route. So in that I'm going to pass the builder, and there I'm going to pass my context of the current application, and there I'm going to pass the page 2. Actually, why it's not showing page 2, when I copy from this particular code I didn't change the class name there, so I think now it's there. Okay, now we have page 2. Import the page also. So now this is how we perform a simple navigation in Flutter, because we have this navigator wizard and we use .push, the method which navigator widget provides, and we pass our context, and in my case I'm passing a new material page route because it's my second page also a material page. So yeah, let me rerun this quickly and check whether it works. Okay, the application has built. Yes, it works. Hooray, it works. So here the back arrow is not visible because I put the color of the colors.blue, and in page 2 I put something. So let me put it as black. Quickly. Okay, good. So here also I can put, instead of blue I can put black. So now if we press on this floating action button which shows us the back arrow, it doesn't perform anything. So for that, in Flutter we have this, I told you, to perform back operations we have some method called pop. So we simply give the context of the current page, and now you can see it works. So this I hope it's all clear to you all, because in here we have this we pass navigator.pop and we pass the context, and when it comes to the, let me zoom a little bit, I actually forgot that, and here we have this. So what we did, actually we built a material app and we added a kind of a floating action button. In the floating action buttons on pressed, this on press I took because I need to perform some actions. So under that I put navigator.push and passing the context and my route. So yeah, so that's how we do a very simple navigation in Flutter. And in this case we are directly calling our page to class through our navigator widget. So as the next thing that I'm going to talk about, how there's something called named routes. We declare routes in our main.dart file. So we'll be discussing about that in our next topic. So in the previous topic we talked how simple navigation works in Flutter. So the next thing I am going to talk about, if we declare the route inside our main.dart file, we call it named routing. So this is one special scenario that we can discuss under this topic. So I am going to change the same application to show you guys how named routing works in Flutter. So before moving to that, I should say that the code related to previous application that I developed with you guys during the tutorial, I have uploaded it to this particular repository, Dilum 1995, it's Flutter navigation, and it's under master branch. So the next thing that we're gonna develop or that we're gonna discuss is named routing. So under this branch I'll be storing this name routing related code, so you guys can take and check out whatever the code base that you need. So if you are considering about named routing, in that we won't have these. So for the moment I am going to delete these pages, because we do lot of all the things inside our main.dart file. So let me close this as well, and for the moment let me paste it here, and I'm deleting the so for the moment I'll stop this, and so the name routing, so how we do that, here we directly gives which is our home. So we says it's page 1 and we are importing the page 1. So when we do name routing, there's something called routes. So we declare our routes within our inside our material main.dart, and it's a builder. We declare it, and route string, it should be widget builder, and then we have this. So here I'm calling page 1. So we are basically, what we are doing here is we are declaring our routes inside the main.dart file, and we give it the page that we're gonna use in our paste the same thing and change. In this case we have only 2 pages, and let me take a copy of the page 1 from the previous code, and let me paste it here. And the class 1, class 2, we have this name page and it shows error. Let me check the error. So here we have this class my app extended statelet widget and the team data, and we declare our routes there. Oops, sorry. So we declare our routes there. Okay, so let me reformat. Okay. So we are declaring our routes here. So this is what we called named routing. So we declare our routes, and when we perform the navigation, also what we do, we perform a navigator dot, there's a off method, and we give the context, and there's this method called push. Initially it was push, and this is push named. So in the route page we have our route name. What was our route name is page 1. So we take that initial page 1 route name and we page 1. So in this case we have this special call, they have provided this special method called push named. So in here also we have to perform the pop action. In here we have to perform the pop action as we performed in the previous example. So let me run this application and see whether it works. I think it should work. So this is how, if we have declared our routes within our main.dart file, this is how we perform the named, as in the named routing. This is what we call name routing. So it's page 1 to page 1. Why is that? Here it should be page 2. So let me quickly hot reload. Yeah, it works. So it's not a big deal, but if we have declared our routes within the main.dart file, this is how we perform the navigation to the next screen. So in the next topic, or in the next part, I am going to discuss how data passing happens while navigation. So assume you need to send some data from your first initial page to the second page. So I'll be discussing how we pass data between two screens in Flutter. So we discussed about named routing. So moving ahead, we have data passing. So under this topic, I am going to talk about how simple data passing happening and how do we pass data between named routes. So I'm telling again, I have uploaded all the codes related to this particular tutorial to this my GitHub channel or the GitHub profile. So you can find the code base under Flutter navigation repository and under different branch with the name of the topic. So let me move ahead and change this sample application to discuss about data passing in Flutter. So I'll be using the same application that which we developed in the under previous topic. So I'll be doing a couple of changes here and there. To again, I'll create the separate dart files for page 1 and page 2. Also, I'll create another new class called user. In this case, in this application, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a simple text field, and I'm going to get some user input data, and I'm going to pass it to the second page. So in that case, I'll be creating a, let me move this piece of code to the relevant dart files. Okay, so we have the dart file here, and comes to page 1. Let's do. So here we go. So the user class user, this is a very simple class which has a username and the name. So also I'll create the constructor of this class, and we are done. So basically this is a user class which has the username. So in here I'm going to make so let me basically here I have to import material dot, and you also have to import material dot, and no errors so far, and let me import page 1. So in my page 1 now I'm going to put a kind of a, what do you call, so I'm going to make a couple of changes to the page 1 class, because this is a stateless widget. So since I'm going to use this text editing controller, and since I have to maintain some state, I'm going to use a stateful widget instead of stateless widget. So stateful widget, I'll make it a stateful widget, and close it from here, and I'll import the missing state, that's the return one. In this I'm going to return page 1. Okay, here we go. So page 1, since it's the stateful widget, I have to have a state page 1 extends state page 1. So now the error is gone. Here we have missing concrete implementation state build. Yes, we are missing state build. Okay, so the build is there, and for the build method I have to make couple of changes. The first thing I have to do is I have to now I have this floating button and all. The as an improvement, I have to put a text editing controller. So for that, not a text editing controller, I have to put a text field. So in that case, I have this body here. It ends in the this particular section. So the body is for the moment I'll remove the container which I have used to wrap the body, and it's basically a center. Then I'll wrap the text child with a column, and in that case I have to add main axis size dot min, and the main axis alignment cross axis alignment dot center. So I'll use that, and I have children, and the text page, this should be a new text, cross axis alignment. The argument type cross axis alignment can't be assigned. Okay, so it's basically not main axis, cross axis alignment. So then what we have to do, and under page 1 I'll change this tab. Hello, what should I call you? So I'm trying to get the username here, and the style is same, 30, 35, maybe 30 there. So font widget is bold and white, the same stuff. So after text, I'll input a new size box to get some space. Hope you guys are aware about size box. Use this size box to, I'll give a height of 10 maybe. Then I'll create a container here to have my text editing control. In that case, I'll add some margin insets. I need to add some margin. I'll go ahead with the child. So the child, I have to have some theming to make that minimal look to my to give that minimal look to my text field. So for the primary color sets, I'll give white. Primary color sets, colors dot white. Okay, then another child. The child may we have new text field. We can have new text field, and from the new text field, then the controller, and we can have text editing controller. Currently I haven't declared that text editing controller, so I'll be doing it in a while. Text editing controller, and let me create the controller itself. Final. We can create text editing controller equal to text editing controller. There is one. Controller, text editing controller, then I should input the autofocus through Then should have decoration. So under decoration I'll put decoration, and I'll do some hint text, maybe John. Then John hint style, text style. So font size 20, then colors dot white, maybe white 70. So yeah, it's all done. And I think this should work. Yeah, so now we have this screen with a simple with the simple text box and all. So for the moment the first page is ready, and we have to go to page 2, and we have to make some changes there. So let me zoom in. So this is the same page that we developed in our previous topics. So here we don't have a user, so for the moment I'll create a final user. Import user. I have this user. Okay. Then first I have to create the constructor, so I have to create the constructor as well. Then here the page 2 I can use welcome. So now we have a now we create the constructor, and now the page 2 is accepting a user object from the page 1. So let me do about preload. Yeah, it works. So this is how the basic data passing works in Flutter. So at the moment I'm just passing a very simple text to the page 2, and you can see it populates in the page 2. So in our case we should clear. Now when we navigate back to the page, still it's there, the Dilum, the name I typed in the text box. So let me clear it. In order to clear it, we can simply call text editing controller dot clear method in our onPressed. So when we navigate to the next page, it will clear the text box and the text editing control itself, and when we come back there's nothing. So I can type Sarah and welcome Sarah. So yeah, this is all about basic data passing in Flutter. So I'll be uploading this code to the repository I mentioned previously, the Flutter navigation repository under my GitHub profile. And let's see, there's another part which I should cover during this tutorial, that is how do we do data passing in named routing, because we called the simple routing as well as named routing. So in the next example I'll be explaining how we pass data in a named routing scenario. So in this example, I'll be showing how we pass data in a named routing situation. I'll be using the same code which I used to demonstrate named routing concept. So in this case, we have declared our routes here. So we have declared our routes. Yeah, I'm declaring my routes, and for the moment I won't use a text box and all. I'll pass some hard coded data. So I'll create a user class as we did in previous example. So the user class is there. So it's class user, which has string username, and it has its construct. Okay, so it's a very simple class which has the user construct. So in this thing, we are not going to make very big changes because we don't have to make very big changes. So here, as usual, I'll initialize a new user, and I can pass this name. This particular class doesn't have a user for the moment, so I'm going to create a final user in the page 1 itself, or else what I can do, since we don't have a user input, so this particular user class accepts name, I guess. Yes, so that particular user class accepts a name. That means I created the yes, it's like that. So what's this error? One requirements argued expect 0 found. Okay. So I'll make some changes. I think now it's gone. Yeah, it's gone. So and in the second page, should accept a user. So also in the second page, I'll create a user object, and in the second page, so I created a user object, and in this page 2, instead of page 2, I'll use hello. This.user.name. So and in the page 1, so we just have to change a very small thing in here. We can send arguments user, and when you retrieve data in the in this section, we have something some special thing called what do you call we call it user route settings. So route settings, we have to route settings, and you have to have route settings. Then sorry, I'm returning a scaffold here. Can't do it anymore. Have to open brackets. I have to return a scaffold. I have to close brackets as well. I need to close, it's already there. So here I can have route settings, where this is the thing that we use to access all the settings related to this route. So model route of context, so we are getting the settings related to that particular route. So through that only we can retrieve the arguments that we passed through as arguments in the previous class. So let me run this. So basically we create a route settings object from the route settings widget, and we have this model route. We get the context and the settings of the context related context, and we have this user settings, and we assign the data that we got as a user object to our current page user. Yeah, it works. So yeah, basically that's the main stuff that we can talk under passing data while navigating to another screen in Flutter. So other than that, if you really want to see more complex, if you want to experience more complex things related to navigation in Flutter, I'm planning to do a kind of a video series about another video, actually the second part of this video, with advanced concepts of the push methods, and there are a lot of methods which has been exposed through the navigator widget. So I'll be doing kind of demonstration on those methods as well. So for the now, I have covered the basic navigation in Flutter, how the screens are stacked in Flutter, and also data passing in Flutter. So as I mentioned, all the code related to these topics, I'm uploading it to these branches, so you can simply fork the project, and so you can simply check out whatever the branch that you want. And also there will be some theoretical stuff I have mentioned in the readme.md.
So I really hope you learned about how navigation works in Flutter, and how to pass data between screens in your project, and also how to maintain navigation in a Flutter mobile project or a web project. Also, I would like to thank the organizers of the bootcamp, Vadodara, and for inviting me as a speaker this time. Yeah, until next time, keep flirting with Flutter. Cheers.